In DataMiner, there are a lot of advanced features to dynamically display data from inside your DataMiner system on a visual overview. In this video, I'm going to show you how to dynamically generate children shapes based on table rows from a particular element via Microsoft Visio. Before I show you how to really generate children shapes based on table rows from an element, let me show you inside DataMiner what I really mean with that. So I have here a DataMiner system, and I have here on my left a transmitter controller. It's an element, and if I open this element and I go to the data side of my element, I have here a test table with multiple lines, all corresponding to in my case, a transmitter. TX1, 2, 3, and my backup transmitter. Now what I want to do, I want to generate a shape for each of these rows inside my table. So if I go to my visual overview, this is the end result where we are working at, basically. So I see also a shape for each of my rows inside my table. I have here TX1, 2, 3, and my backup transmitter, corresponding to the lines inside my table. Now, how to make this? Let's immediately dive into it. I'm going to right-click this Visio page, and I'm going to live edit this in Microsoft Visio. This is the end result, but let's start from a new page, a brand new sheet. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a rectangle to show the area in which I would like to generate my children shapes. This is the area that I want to generate them in. So next thing I do is I click on this shape, I right click, and I group this. Inside this group, I'm going to create now a child group. This child group will be generated dynamically for each row inside my table. So I right click again on my group and I open it. Inside this group, I'm going to draw my child shape only once. I right click this one and I group it again. I will close my group. So let's have a look. What do I have now? I have here a outer group, and inside this group I have a child. Now it will be a matter of defining shape data on group level and on child level to dynamically generate like a child for each of my rows in my table. There are a few shape data fields that I can define, and I have a few mandatory ones and a few optional ones. Let's start with the mandatory ones. I have two mandatory fields that I need to define on my group level. So I select my outer group and I can right click data, shape data. As soon as you do that, you have this below pane. I can right click in that and I will define new shape data. The first shape data that I'm going to make is the one with the name children. And the value of this shape data is row, because I want to generate a shape for each row inside my table. I will add an extra shape data field, and that's children's source. Like this. And the value of this will contain from where DataMiner needs to take his information to generate all of these shapes. In our case, this is like an element. The name of the element, if I go back, is TX controller 1. TX controller 1. I put a slash, and now I need to define the parameter ID of the table where those rows can be found. So if I go to DataMiner, in my element, this is my test table. What is now the ID of this table? I can drill down into this parameter. If I double click it, and now I see here ID 1000. Let's add this in Visio. So this is my table from this element. I press OK. So these are the mandatory shape data fields on group level. On child level, so if I open my child again, I also have to define a mandatory shape data field, and that's the one with the name child type. And the value for this one is also a row, because this one will correspond to a row inside my table. I press OK. Let me save this up and see the result. What do I see now? I see already 1, 2, 3, 4 shapes automatically generated in my visual overview, and they correspond to 1, 2, 3, 4 lines inside my table. But as you can see, these shapes don't contain any information, and they all have the alarm color of the overall state of my element, which is in this case yellow. It's a major severity. Let's first give this another color. We don't want to see the overall state of my element. No, I want to see the alarm state of the row. So which is normal, warning, normal, and the major alarm. What do I need to do for that? I need to go inside my child group. I have there my rectangle. So inside my rectangle, I need to define some shape data again. And this time it is a shape data parameter. And I need to give it a value asterisk, a pipe, and then alarm. I will hit OK. I'll save it again and let's see the results. Now you see all these shapes are already coloring according to the alarm state of the row. The next thing we want to do is we want to add some extra information inside our boxes. We want to see, for example, the name of our transmitter, which is this column over here, and we want to see the number of errors, which is the second column that we can see in the table. Let's go again to Visio. I will open up my child group. So I right click, group, open group. And I'm going to draw some text. The first text box over here. I will put an asterisk. It's like a placeholder for the name of our transmitter, the first column in our table. And I will draw a second text box more to the bottom to show the number of errors. Again, I will type an asterisk and I will type a fixed text like this. So let me quickly put some nicer layouts. I will give it another font, Sig UI for example. The background, let's not give it a line, just it's nicer for the eye. I will align this one right and give it a white text, something like this. I need to, of course, put again some shape data inside these two text fields. So let's start with the top one. I need to define a shape data parameter. And I need to specify the ID of the parameter of my column, basically. What is the ID of the first column? I can double click any of the lines inside my table. So when I drill down, you see that the ID of my first column is 1001. The ID of my second column, if I double click it, it's 1002. This information we will need in Visio to specify what column value we would like to display. So my first one was 1001. I will hit OK. The second one, I will also need to define some shape data parameter, and I will give it a value 1002 because that's the ID of my second column. And I press OK. I can close this up. Let's save this and go back to DataMiner. What is the result? Look at that. We have again still our shapes for each row in our table. They are coloring according to the state of the row, and we see the column value of the first column and the second column here on the bottom. And this, of course, for each of my rows dynamically. So these are the mandatory shape data fields that are necessary in order to generate your shapes based on our table rows in our element. Without these, you are not able to generate those shapes dynamically. But like I said in the beginning of this video, there are also some optional shape data fields. These are shape data fields to kind of further tweak the look and feel of how these shapes are being generated. I can tell you we have a lot of them. I'm going to pick a few of them out for you, the ones that are used most often. And after that, I'm going to refer to our DataMiner help, where you can find a description of all the other ones where you can then play around with. So let's dive into our DataMiner system again. And a first one that I would like to show to you is the shape data child margin. Child margin is a shape data that needs to be put on child level, and like the name says by itself, child margin is to make a margin between all the shapes that are generated. By default, the margin is 0, like you can see currently in the visual overview. So these shapes are kind of sticking to each other. Let's go to Visio. This. We're going to put here on our child some extra shape data. So I right click again and I define some new shape data. I already have the mandatory one, child type, but I'm going to add now an extra one with the name child margin. And if I put a value inside, like let's say 5, and if I save this up, then you will see that between all my shapes I have a small margin, a margin of 5 pixels. These pixels is like a fixed number. So regardless of the size of my, my shapes, these 5 pixels will remain always fixed between the shapes. I can also change this 5 to something relative, not absolute but relative this time. For example, 1/20. If I save this and check the result, at first sight you would say, okay, the result is exactly the same, but no. Now I have like 1/20 of the size of my shape. So that means if my shape becomes smaller, my margin will also become smaller. And let me show that to you. Let's try to put these two windows here on the same page. If I change the size of my child, so I make it smaller, like this, and I see the result, you see the margin also becomes smaller, because it's relative. If I make it bigger, and I save it again, now you see in DataMiner the margin is way more. If I compare that to the fixed 5, and I save that, you see now fixed 5 pixels in between my shapes. If I make my shape smaller, it remains these fixed 5 pixels. So that's the difference between them. That's something you can do with the child margin on shape on the child level. Another one that I would like to show to you, so let's make this bigger again. Another one that I would like to show to you is one on group level with the name children sort. Because what you can see right now is we have DXB, then 3 to 1. I would like to see that in the other way around. Meaning I would like to generate my shapes and immediately sort them according to my first column, which is the name. How can I do that? Well, this time on group level, I need to specify some extra shape data. You can see I already have my mandatory shape data from before, children and children source. Now I'm going to add an extra shape data over here with the name children sort. The value of this needs a specific syntax. If I want to sort by column name, I need to first specify a keyword table column. I need to specify a pipe character and then the parameter ID of the column to which I would like to sort. My column parameter ID is 1001. It's the same one as we used already before. And if I press OK, I apply this and save it. Now you see it's starting with DX1, DX2, 3, and then B. I can also choose to either make it ascending or descending by adding a comma and then ASC or DSC. So if I put DSC, DESC, sorry, then you will see that it's the opposite again. We start with DXB and we end with DX1. A last one that I would like to show you is children panel, because now we are by default stacking everything horizontally. But if I want to stack them vertically, I can also add some extra shape data again on group level, this time with the name children panel. And this time I have to put a value stack vertical, like this. If I save it again and I check the result, now you will see that my shapes are not stacked horizontally anymore, but vertically. But like I said, we have many more shape data fields that can be added to our shapes to further fine-tune the look and feel of those shapes. You can find all of them on the DataMiner help. Where can you find them? You can find them under the section Basic DataMiner Functionality, Visio Drawings, Generating Shapes Dynamically, and finally under the section Generating Shapes Based on Table Rows. Over here you have a big page with all the descriptions, all the shape data fields that I used in this video, with a nice description and examples, etc. So feel free to try them out, play around with them, and further fine-tune your visual overview. So now you know how to dynamically generate shapes based on table rows from a particular element. As you could see, this is quite powerful and contains tremendous possibilities. Good luck in making your own visual overviews and see you around.